My name is Andrika McCain. We want to thank you for joining us today for our webinar. Just before we start, just want to give a couple housekeeping instructions. Number one, we will have two presenters today, and we will pause for questions in between presentations. If you have any questions, you want to use the Q&A tab at the top. You have to click on Q&A and then click Start Discussion. The chat is not available, so you need to use the Q&A tab to enter your questions. Anything we're able to answer during the presentation, we will. Otherwise, we will export the Q&As and send those out. We will be sending a copy of the presentation slides as well as a link to the recording of this webinar session, and the Q&A will be attached as well. The presentation slides and link will go to the email address that you have here in the webinar that was on your registration or attached to your attendance today. With that, we will go ahead and turn it over to our first presenter. Thank you.
Thank you, Andrika. Good afternoon, everyone, at least from the East Coast perspective. My name is Dan Powers. I've been the SBA point of contact for our efforts related to the entity-owned development work being done in my SBA. So we're excited to be here today to give a little refresher on the first few steps of the entity-owned application process, and then maybe more importantly, highlight some issues that we're still working on and that we plan to hopefully have resolved later this summer. I'll get into detail more, but it looks like we might have some development bandwidth to continue to improve the process. So thank you again for being with us, and I will jump right in. As Andrika mentioned, if there's any questions, just put them in the Q&A and we can try to answer them. If not in real time, we'll loop back and make sure we resolve any issues. So with that, you should all be able to see my screen, a PowerPoint slide, where we will go through the first few steps of the controlling entity application. So for this example, we're imagining that we're starting an application as an entity-owned business. And all firms, entity or individually owned, will start with this first step, this claim your business step. This is a step where we're connecting users with their SAM profiles, essentially. It lets us rely on that SAM data to help build out your profile and improve security from our perspective. You can see it'll ask for the UEI of the applicant firm, the cage code, and the taxpayer identification number. You'll also notice on this page that there's a number of warnings or messages that don't really apply to entity-owned users. We recognize that, but we are tied to the SAM step. So at least for now, you'll have to ignore some of these warnings. We understand that this step won't be completed by a primary qualifying owner, since the controlling entity firms are generally owned by their controlling entities. But with that being said, it's a good time to mention that the system is expecting, from the entity-owned perspective, they're expecting this to be completed, the business to be claimed, and the application to be started by the primary manager, or the day-to-day manager, as we sometimes refer to it. If
Dan,
that's
I'm
not
sorry
the
to
case,
interrupt, but some people are saying they can't see the slides.
can you see them, Cynthia?
I can see it. I'm not sure, but there's several people that have indicated that they can't see the slides.
I can see it as well.
I can see them.
I think maybe for the people who can't see them, maybe they can just maybe try to exit and come back in. I think for some people that worked.
Let me stop sharing and try to reshare too, and maybe we will hope that that will resolve the issue. And if not, again, we'll be make sure to send these out. There's only a handful of slides. I think you can hopefully get the gist of what we're covering, and then review them later once we send them out.
Okay. Thank you, Dan. A couple people said they exited and re-entered and can see, so
Okay, great.
we'll drive on. Thank you.
So as I was saying, the default expectation is that the day-to-day manager of the subsidiary, the applicant firm, is claiming the business. We understand that's not always the case. So just be aware that if you do have someone else claim the business and start the application process, you'll need to make sure to invite that manager, that day-to-day manager, as a contributor to the application. So it's just a little highlight of a potential workaround we might have to go through if someone else is claiming the business. But all firms will start here, claim their business in SAM, and then move on to the next step, which is identifying themselves as an entity-owned business. The screen we see here just asks if the user is claiming to be entity-owned, essentially if the firm applying is claiming to be entity-owned. If the user selects yes, then they're asked to indicate which type of entity ownership is applicable. Obviously, the 5 categories related to SBA programs are the options, and depending on which option you select, this drop-down box, there'll be a drop-down box at the bottom of the page that's populated with all the controlling entities that have successful connections in MySBA so far. This is one of the steps that we're working to improve. So there's been some changes to this screen. The process has been that if your controlling entity is not in this drop-down list, you would click a button to invite a new controlling entity. And I know we've gone back and forth. I think at this point, the process may actually now just include a link to the help desk. We're asking users to connect with the help desk at this step if they don't have a controlling entity in the drop-down, to work with the help desk to get theirs added. We're asking for that. We're kind of adding a layer into the process because we were running into a large number of duplicate controlling entities being entered, or firms trying more than once to make this connection. So we had to kind of add a control layer in the process, get the help desk involved, make sure we're connecting you with the right controlling entity, and we will move forward from there. So if it doesn't look exactly like this, that's why there might be a link, as I mentioned, down here to the help desk going, at least temporarily, until we find a permanent solution. It's important if you are inviting a new controlling entity, it's important to remember the user that you would then identify as the point of contact for that controlling entity. Essentially, the email address that you give in that next step is the user that will be asked to come in and claim the controlling entity profile. So this is where the application essentially splits into 2 parts. We're asking one user to complete questions related to controlling entity. The user who claimed the business from these screens that we've seen will continue with their application, but we'll need both parts to complete our review. So we're encouraging users to coordinate between those 2 users. It could be 2 different users, could be the same, but it's 2 different submissions, and just try to make sure they're submitted as close as possibly together to get them, make it easier for us to see, make sure we have complete packages to review, and make the connections of which controlling entity is related to which applicant firm more easily, because we've had issues over the last few months where we have, essentially half an application. We have the controlling entity portion, but not the firm. And obviously we need both to complete the review. Once you either find your new controlling entity or start the process of creating a new one, that controlling entity user would eventually be able to get to this screen, which is just the dashboard of the controlling entity management page. Here you can see this is where they would manage connection requests, identify their subsidiary firms, and hopefully eventually use shared contributors here. We'll cover that shortly as one of our high priority items that we're hoping to deliver in the next development window. But again, this is one of the 2 perspectives that we would have managed going forward. This would be the controlling entity profile that needs to be submitted separately from this view, which is the applicant firm's questionnaire view. So this is kind of a landing page of all the questionnaire sections that are required to be answered as part of the application. The user can jump in, dig into each one of these sections and answer their questions. They don't have to go through it in order, but as they complete each section, you'll see the status column right now is marked as not started. They'll have to complete each of these sections to submit the application. Additionally, the answers from these sections should drive the document upload requests. So once the user answers all the application questions, one of the last screens they should see is a list of documents that we're expecting to be uploaded, and that should correspond to the user's responses. For example, potential for success jumps to mind as a question we're asking controlling entity firms to tell us, how are they proving that they have the potential to succeed, which is one of the requirements of the program. There's 3 options per the regs. More often than not, we're getting a letter of support from the controlling entity. So long story short, if that's the option the applicant firm selects, that they're going to provide a letter of support, that's what the document prompt should display. So you'd only expect to see upload prompts for files that you identified as being relevant. And as you can see here, it's been a little bit of an ongoing battle, but we are trying to keep the content that entity-owned firms see only relevant to the entity content. I think we've had, spent a lot of time in the past having entity-owned firms jump through questions that weren't applicable. So this is designed to only ask relevant questions, and we're making sure we clean up any issues with that as we see them. But there should be no more blank document uploads or not applicable responses required. And now I just wanted to cover at a high level some of the high priority issues we're hoping to resolve. As I mentioned, it looks like we're going to get a bit of, thankfully, some more bandwidth from the development team to focus on entity owned, probably in the September timeframe. So this isn't a comprehensive list of everything we're tracking, just some high level ones that should be impactful. But as I'll wrap up and continue to encourage everyone to submit help desk tickets for outstanding issues between now and then, because that is the best way for us to show the tech team where the problems are and help get those resources where they need to be to fix them. So first and foremost, we want to improve that connection between the firm and the controlling entity. It shouldn't be as hard as it has been for firms to identify and connect with their controlling entity. So we want to make sure we build out that drop-down list appropriately. We have the right controlling entities in there. And after we can get through kind of this first painful step of the first application, subsequent firms have a much easier time of just selecting their controlling entity and connecting more cleanly. So hopefully we can get the help desk out of this process, even though we just recently had to add them to help clean it up. But we'll continue to focus on that as being one of the big issues that has popped up and slowed people down. We also want to make sure we enable shared contributors from the controlling entity profile. That was one of the major functionalities that we built towards, that was kind of our goals of developing the system. And as far as we know, it's still not working. This would be a feature where a subsequent applicant firm can just select names from the controlling entity profile once they've connected and avoid inviting those users to the new application since they already have a profile in the system. So we're hoping to eliminate that duplicative work for individuals that are involved in more than one entity-owned firm. The third bullet, we want to improve how we identify the primary manager. I mentioned in the beginning, there's been some confusion with who claims the business. So we just want to make sure if we can clean up the messaging throughout the application and make it clear who we're expecting to answer each question. And then on the SBA side, we need to make it clear who answered each question so the reviewers can see, are these responses from who I'm expecting them to be from, and do they cover that requirement we have to check the day-to-day manager. We also understand it's going to be very important going forward, especially as we build out these control entity profiles with all their participants to allow ongoing access to the profile. Obviously, updated documents are going to need to be added on a continuing basis, and any changes would want to be documented. So we want to make sure that those control entity profiles remain open and accessible to their representatives, to their administrative users after they get approved, so they can actually be useful and have relevant information to leverage. And then last but certainly not least would be our efforts to transfer the current portfolio of participants into MySBA and make sure we get them connected to their controlling entities appropriately. All these shared resources we're talking about on the application side will be helpful for applications, but they'll especially be helpful for annual reviews once we get them up and running in the new system. So we want to make sure we build the connections appropriately and we let entity-owned users leverage those shared resources and avoid duplicative work at the annual review point as well. So just a handful of bullets. Trust me, there's plenty of others that we have in the queue to be developed, but we'll make sure we get those resources where they need to be and keep improving the process. And then on that note, my last 2 slides, I think, are just a reminder of where you can go to get help if you do have issues. This is a screenshot from the top page of MySBA certifications. If you click on the Get Help link at the top, it'll take you, I think it can also take you to the knowledge base, but it'll be the primary way to submit a help desk ticket if you do run into a problem. So if any of these features aren't working as we've described, and it's been intermittent, so it wouldn't be a shock to us, please continue to submit the help desk tickets. That helps us, like I said, really show the tech team where the issues are. They have more weight coming from the public sometimes than they do from us because they're real world examples of problems. And then it gives us kind of an anchor point to reference the problem and help it get resolved if it started with a ticket from the public. And that is the extent of my content. So I'll pause there. I didn't keep an eye on questions, so I'll see if anything popped up. But if not, submit questions now, and I'll pause for the next presentation, I think from Brian, which should focus on HubZone.
Okay, thank you so much, Dan. I'm scanning the Q&A here to see if there's anything I wasn't able to answer while you were going through. Let's see what it is. Okay. Okay. Thank you, Dan. Are you ready, Brian?
Yeah, can you see my screen? It has the discussion on the top of it.
Yes.
Okay, good. Hi, everybody. Brian, I'm going to go over some of the HubZone aspects. One thing, I know we got the entity folks on here. One thing that I did want to check, and actually that I did right before I got on here, I was kind of happy that I can put out, and hopefully you all get to see this. With the entity folks, you all know that you all get to decide while you're doing the HubZone application from the very beginning that you decide whether you want to meet the 35% MPO at time of application or at time of award. So actually I talked to the IT folks and they said it was in a test environment. I haven't verified that it's in the application, but they did verify that it is in the test environment. So I'm hoping that it is in the application. So if you want to sit there and go into the application first while you're getting ready to do this, you can actually see if it's there, and you can actually bypass the whole application, the calculator part of it and go right straight into the application. So you don't have to get into this. But some of the things, while you're getting ready to do the calculator, if you could make sure that you got your 4 weeks of payroll ready when you're getting ready to do this. That'll help you, have that ready to go so that you have that. And when you're doing your payrolls, make sure when you're doing your calculator, make sure you're following the payroll when you're putting the people in there, just going down the line on that. That'll make it a lot easier for the analysts and the screeners looking at it. So they just sit there and look at it and it follows right along with it. The work hours and everything. And also if you have any folks that, they might not show on payroll, but they're actually, they're still, they might just be compensated, but they're not there on payroll. They're just working hours for the firm. Also, make sure that your people have proof of residency showing that they're there for 90 days. I know that when I was actually processing applications for some of the tribal entities, that the residency for the tribal folks, it had a PO box on them. Make sure that those folks that the proof of residency actually has a physical address. We can't use the PO box. It's actually got to have a physical address for those folks. Now, remember, you only got to do 35%. You don't have to do everybody in there. So if you've got 10 people, you've only got to sit there and get 4 of them to sit there and show the 35%. I mean, you can show all 10 if you want to, but if you only get to 35%, you only got to get 4, and it's got to show the 90 days prior to sit there and get to those folks. Now, I know when Dan's sitting there and he was showing you how to get into the application, before and log in. But what I recommend, folks, when you're doing the HubZone calculator, use the one on the outside, but use the one before you actually get into the system. Usually with the entities, you're going to have the folks, all the tribal land's going to be hub zones. But I know I've also got some folks on here in the call. They're probably not entities, but and if you can, please use a calculator on the outside. Use that one. You're going to make sure you're verified that you're going to actually meet the HubZone requirements. So don't even log in yet. Just use the calculator on the outside. And of course, you'll go there and you'll click on the very first thing to begin. And then you're going to put in your company name, the application date, and then your payroll frequency. And if you only have one person, running the company and you don't have a payroll, you click on the don't have the payroll. The one thing that everybody should look at though, is if you see that little red asterisk next to anything, please make sure you fill that in. And anything that has a red asterisk on it, make sure you have something in that box. And then down in your payroll periods, whatever your end date is, and it's like on this one, I put in 7/15, and you'll notice that it automatically fills the dates for you. On the one on the outside, you notice it's going to blank out the UEI for you on this one. One thing I've noticed, I sit there at the principal office. I for the location name on this one, I put in principal office. That's what you're going to be claiming as your HubZone location. And then, and your address, spell it out here. I've noticed that when you go to in the application, if you sat there and you abbreviated anything on your address, so you have in SAM, like if you put it 123 S 45th Ave, sometimes the system has an issue with it. Or if you put South 145th Ave apartment 45, the mapping system has a hard time with that. And if you have like any telework areas for employees or job site locations, please don't add those into here. And of course, you'll see where I said there, I made up this stuff here, and you're going to hit save and then go into next. And then of course, the made up employees. And like I said, you're going to put these in there just the same order as how they show on payroll. And of course, made up Mr. John Smith. And I've got the hours here that, Mr. Smith worked his 160 hours. And like I said, you'll see where I filled in, the name, the red asterisks again. And then of course, down there at the bottom, did he telework or put him in the principal office? And of course, my poor slides, you can make sure wherever you see a thing on the bottom of these things to hit save, make sure you hit save before you hit next. And then there's Mr. Smith's address. And then what do you have for proof of residency for him? Because you see where I set there at the top, I claimed him as my HubZone resident. And then of course, it's going to sit there, and when you go to put that issue date in there, it's going to automatically back it out the 90 days. So if you have less than 90 days, it's going to sit there and it's going to ask you, make sure that you have to put in another form of proof of residency. It'll let you you can put in the driver's license for the less than 90 days, but it's also going to ask you for a lease agreement, utility bill, something else to sit there and put it in there. And again, like I said, you'll see my note there that make sure you hit the save at the bottom. And then it'll sit there and it'll come through and it's going to tell you before you even go in there that you meet. And it's going to tell you to export the calculator. You'll see that there on the right-hand side. What you'll do is you'll sit there and you'll export that file, and that's going to be the friendly file, and you'll save that file to go into the application later. If it tells you you don't meet, and you think that you do, go back in and double check and make sure that you have the right address in there for the employees. Double check, you can go onto the HubZone map and make sure that you have the right address for the office. Or make sure that you have the right hours in there. Make sure that your HubZone employees or the employees for the firm are working the required 40 hours for that 4-week period to be counted. And that, that way they count as a HubZone employee or employee for the firm. Then what you'll do is you'll export that file out. You'll go into the application, you go through the steps that Dan talked about going in, getting your business, get it going, and then going through the application. And then if you decide to go ahead and meet the 35% at the time of the application for the entity firms, then you'll import it back in. And it should let you go ahead and go through. Sometimes things happen. If it does give you an issue, we're here to help. And that should go ahead and take care of everything. And of course, I put our number and everything here in case you have any questions or our email. And that concludes our HubZone calculator. And with that, I will stop.
Thank you, Brian. Great presentation. Okay, we have some time left for questions. So what we'll do while we still have everyone on, we'll just open up for questions. If you have a question, you can raise your hand and I'll open your mic. If anyone has any questions. Okay. Okay, Jonathan, you can unmute.
Hey, good afternoon. Thank you for being here today.
Good afternoon. Thank you for being here.
Yes, ma'am. So I just actually typed the question in. I just needed some verification because from my research, I needed to verify that funding for HubZone certifications wasn't or isn't heavily affected by the current administration, because I know a lot of federal funding has been cut. In a meeting I was at earlier with SCORE, they were talking about how some of their budget had been cut as well. So I'm trying to get some mentorship, like leadership questions answered in that arena.
Thank you for your question. I think I sent a message back. If you would email us with your company name and contact information, then we can get you an appropriate POC.
Okay, no problem. Yes, ma'am. Thank you.
Thank you for your question.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Dallas, your mic is open. You can unmute.
Great, thank you for that. My question is surrounding claiming the business initially. If the business has previously been claimed by somebody that's either not affiliated with the business any longer, or we'll go with that example, what is the process for the current rightful owner to obtain that business and get that claimed under their name and user ID?
Oh, thank you for your question, Dallas. I think someone else. Oh, no, that's it. So you want to, where Dan showed you where to go to the landing page for Get Help, you have to submit a ticket there, and you want to provide the information, the name and email address for the previous owner, and so that IT can disassociate the previous owner so that the new owner can claim the business.
Thank you for that. Just one follow-up question, if I may. If you don't know who the previous owner is that an issue?
If you would go ahead and put the ticket in, and you can put that to my attention. My name is Andrika McCain.
Sure.
And then I can work with IT to see how we would handle that, since you don't have the person's name and email address.
Great. Thank you very much.
You're welcome. Thank you for the question. Okay, we have Barbara Clark. Your mic is open.
Hello, good afternoon. Can nonprofits apply for these certifications?
No, it has to be a for-profit entity.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. Okay, I don't see any more questions. See a new hand from Laura Lancaster. Let me open your mic. You can unmute.
If we go in and try to claim a business, but it says this business has already been claimed, is that a problem that we go to the help desk for?
Yeah, so you can put a ticket in, and then IT can let you know who has already claimed, what name and email address has already claimed the business.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. Is it Afia? Make sure.
Yes, it's Afia.
Okay.
I actually had a question. It's from one of our employees. He wasn't able to join. But his question was, our office is located in the HubZone with a few of our workforce, but we are staffing company placing temporary staff in nursing homes and care centers through the state and Mountain West region. Will those staff count towards our residency requirement of 35%? Many are W-2, but none are full-time or part-time for the company.
You have that, Brian?
Any employees that actually work 40 or more hours in a 4-week period for a firm would count for employees of the firm. If they're working 40 or more hours in a 4-week period, they count as employees for the firm.
Okay, that makes sense. Thank you.
Thank you both. Leslie Spears. You can unmute. Leslie Spears, you can unmute if you still have a question. Okay. Last name Davis. You can unmute if you still have a question.
Yes, ma'am, I do. It's a follow-up question pertaining to how do you find out if someone has obtained a company? Um, like you just told someone to send some information to you for your IT. My thing is that I have 2 companies, but I have not been able to completely get them started up. And with what's going on with all of this identity theft and all this stuff, I would like to find out if someone else has possibly tried to link to my companies since they've been kind of like just sitting right now. If that makes any sense.
So you're asking, you want to find out if someone's already claimed either one of your businesses? Is that what you're saying?
Yes, ma'am, because they're like sitting idle and has been for a minute now, but I'm in the process of still working on the startups of them.
Okay. Well, if you want to put, so we don't open a ticket unnecessarily, if you want to go ahead and drop that here in the Q&A, we can look those up and tell you whether there's been any activity on either of the UEIs, the SAM UEI numbers.
Okay. All right. Yes, ma'am.
Thank you. Miss Leslie Spears, I'm sorry, Leslie Spears, I don't know if it's male or female. If you still have a question, you can unmute your mic and ask your question. Okay. Well, if anyone else has any further, okay. All right, this will be our last question. Brittany Rogers. Let me unmute your mic. You can unmute.
Good afternoon. Thank you for taking the time to meet with everybody today and answer our questions. I did have a question regarding if there's an elevation path for a point of contact that we're able to work with to elevate any concerns as far as expected turnaround times for the program acceptance. We've had good responsiveness at the initial BOS review level, but once it gets past that initial processing phase, it seems like there's no updates. It's with the supervisor review, legal review, and it's just sitting months and months stagnant, and there's nobody that we're able to turn to get an update to kind of see what we can do to push it along. So we just wanted to see if there's any point of contact that we can utilize to elevate any concerns. Besides, we have reached out to the certifications email before, but we haven't received response. So
Is that specifically for an 8A application?
yes, ma'am.
I can go ahead and take the UEI if you have it.
Okay. 1 second.
Or you can drop it in the Q&A and I'll grab it.
Give me 1 second. I'm gonna pull it up. Would I be able to correspond with you offline without everybody on the call?
Sure. You have the, I can give you our call center number.
Perfect. That would be
And
awesome.
Yes, it's 866 443 4110.
Perfect. Thank you.
866 443 4110.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate the question. Okay, we have next is Edwin. You can unmute.
Good afternoon, ma'am. I'm just looking for what's the best way to get resources to with an 8.8 application. We're starting our business. We have a contract already, but we wanted to get more involved with the SBA and with the 8.8 program. And I know there's been some folks that have calling us with private firms, and I'm not saying they're good or bad. So you would pay them to help you to walk through the process, pay them to kind of get you set up with GSA. Right now, we're set up with SAM, but I wanted to know if there are resources in the SBA that would help with things like that, like getting onto the 8.8 program, getting certified in GSA. What's the best way to kind of request help?
Did you say you're already 8A certified or you're pursuing?
No, we are pursuing 8A. We have the SAM, so we're set up on SAM. We were able to start it, be awarded a contract there, but we're interested now seeing if we can get on GSA as well as get on the 8A program. We're just looking for some guidance from the SBA, and not paying someone that's one of those firms, or if one of those firms is recommended by the SBA, maybe going that way. Just looking for support.
Thank you. My recommendation would be at Apex Accelerator, and you can locate those on SBA website under resource partners under resources.
Okay.
But I'll
We had
yield
one
to
locally.
Dan. Go ahead.
Yeah, I'm sorry. Yeah, we had one locally in
Mhm.
Massachusetts, but they closed down. So would it just be reach back out
Wow.
to the SBA?
You said that the local you had, they closed?
Yeah, he sent an email saying that their program was no longer funded. So that's kind of how how we got here to try to do some stuff on our own.
Understood. What's an email address where I can send?
I can put it in the questions. Is that okay? Just kind of put it in the question section.
Okay. Okay, so I can email you, see if we can locate another one for you and email you,
That'd
and
be
I'll
greatly
stand by if
appreciated.
anyone else has any other recommendation. I know Dan and Terrence are on here.
So, Andrea, what I would probably recommend is, even though that one Apex Accelerator office may have closed, typically they work in partnership. So you may have an Apex Accelerator that is nearby in the nearest state that's there for you. But I would agree with Enrique as far as the resource partners that you can actually go to as well. I wouldn't recommend anyone paying for something. 90% of our application, unless you have some really complex business structure, you as a business owner can do it yourself. The biggest thing with the 8A app, or one of the biggest things with the 8A application is the social narrative. That is the biggest, one of the biggest hurdles that you will have to cross, and that's just something that you have to demonstrate how you were disadvantaged on a consistent basis. But other than that, you should be able to proceed with the application itself.
Okay, all right. It's probably not
Recommend.
a good idea to pay for it. I definitely appreciate that because I've definitely been thinking that that's something we might want to put money towards. But we can talk to. If there are more Apex folks that we can talk to, we'll be very happy to do that.
And the biggest thing is once you gather all the documents that are actually needed, those are business documents that all small businesses should have. Like I said again, your social narrative is your biggest thing, and that's something that you may need to sit down with and really think about and structure your social narrative and describe how you were disadvantaged. Um, but the social narrative is probably the biggest thing. Everything else you should have as a small business owner. Nothing you've been through any other certifications. It's not like we're asking for like a magic potion or anything of that nature with any of these applications. So I will advise any small businesses that are listening, don't pay anybody on something that you could probably do for yourself. There may be some instances where you may have to seek legal advice based upon a certain structure that you're uh, trying to make sure your business is in, a different thing of that nature. But very few and far in between that you should actually need or pay somebody to do that.
And if I may
I really
interject,
appreciate the feedback.
I'm gonna piggyback off of what he said. That's 100% correct because when I first got into the space, I got inundated with a bunch of BS, right? And so people will take advantage of you if you let them, right? So first thing is, working on where you're weak, right? Asking questions, things like that, because now you become the expert, right? They say fail forward and fail fast, fail often, etc. Right? So where you come in, it's like, okay, hey, I'm gonna sit down, I'm gonna learn this information, I'm gonna dive in, etc. So be quick to recognize when somebody's trying to take advantage of you, especially when the system is free. And everything that you can learn, it takes a little time, but you'll get there.
Thank you both.
Thank you.
Okay. Sarah?
Hello, thank you. I wanted to know if there was a status update for existing HubZone firms moving into the new system, because the old system is no longer working. And I had a follow-up question, and wanted to see how long it would be to hear back once the application is sent to legal. And that's it.
If I understand you correctly, you are asking if there are status updates for HubZone applications that were submitted in a legacy system. Any applications that were in a legacy system prior to August 1st, I believe it was. If they weren't completed before the migration to the new system, it wouldn't have been still in process. You'd have to submit in the new system. Brian, you can correct me if I'm wrong, if you have anything you want to add to that.
No, yeah, all the ones that were in HCTS were closed out before we switched over to the other system. Those were done. Were you certified before we switched over, or did you have one in there you were waiting on?
It was in existence and approved prior to the migration.
Okay, so you're certified. It's just okay. Then no, yeah, you would set up with the certifications. You're gonna have to set up a new account. That stuff's gonna happen later. Yeah, because you're gonna be good with your next recertification won't be until 2027. You won't have to do anything with that until till then, because of the new requirement. All certified firms won't have to recertify for 3 years. So if you're currently certified, you won't have to recertify for 3 years.
Okay. And then my second question was, how long would we anticipate hearing back from you after application has been sent to legal for an 8A application?
Hey, Brian, I can probably answer that right now. Currently
Okay,
at the right now, if I give you time, I don't want to mislead you or provide you misinformation. And we don't have a current average processing time once it gets to legal. We can't dictate to them how long it takes them to do their legal review. We kind of lean on them as much as we possibly can, but right now I really don't have a time frame in reference to once it gets to legal. I would say if you haven't heard anything that has been with legal more than 60 days, then you can reach out to the person that was working your application or call the customer service help desk to get an update. And then I would say check back maybe every 30 to 45 days after that. So after it goes to legal, I would say maybe every 60 days, find out, call and see if we can get an update on that. But unfortunately, we don't have a kind of finger on the pulse for legal as of right now. They work on their own terms.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Terrence. Sarah Murray? Sarah Murray,
Hello, let me know. I'm sorry. Let me know if you can hear me.
There you go. We can hear you.
Hi, I'm an advisor with New Hampshire Apex Accelerator. While Massachusetts is temporarily closed, we've kind of divvied the state between the surrounding apexes. And I've put New Hampshire Apex's email in the chat. So if you're from Massachusetts and you'd like Apex assistance, Just email New Hampshire and we'll help you.
Oh, thank you for that.
Talk about New Hampshire. Way to go.
Awesome.
Thank you, Sarah.
Thank
Definitely be
you.
hearing from us. Appreciate it.
Okay. First name Marufa. You can unmute.
Hi, good morning from Hawaii.
Oh, good morning.
I have several questions. First would be, we are a member managed LLC. Last 5 years, we've been like funding our time and money to develop this company. First question would be, we are women owned. So is it included in the entity type? Like, do you consider a women owned business for application?
Yes.
So are you trying to apply for HubZone or when you talk about entity type, there's only certain things, and just because you're a women-owned small business doesn't necessarily qualify for entity owned for HubZone. You can apply for HubZone, but not as far as entity goes.
Okay. Yes, we've been training local students, native Hawaiian population for space industry, aerospace related and astronaut training. But it would be helpful to have some sort of platform from SBA. We do have a SCORE mentor. Recently, I have a mentor. So second question would be, since I mentioned we don't have any employee yet, we're kind of self-funding programs. Do we need to have employee for W-2 or?
To apply for the 8A program?
Yes.
No, ma'am. You don't necessarily need to have employees to apply for the 8A program. That's not a requirement. So if you go to our website and you click on resources, and once you click on our resources, you scroll down and says part 2. It says program specific documents. It'll tell you what documents you need in order to apply for each of the individual programs.
Okay, that is helpful. I mean, we do have like volunteers and mentors, but we don't provide any salary, and we don't take any salary yet because we don't have any funding structure. That's why. And third question would be the main person who's applying. I mean, for me, do I have to be American citizen or can it be just permanent resident is fine?
Dan, if you still on, you may answer. Well,
US
I think
citizen.
you have to be a U.S. citizen in order to
Yes.
apply for the program. So if you're not a U.S.
Yes.
citizen, you cannot apply for the 8A program.
Okay, so my co-founder is a US citizen. He can then, somebody who is representing has to be American citizen.
The majority owner has to be a U.S. citizen.
Yes.
50-50. What is 50-50 owner?
50-50 is that
Yes.
it doesn't work. It says a majority owner.
Oh, I see. Okay.
Majority owner. So versus not 51%, firm does not qualify.
Okay. Thank
It's
you.
similar to submitting application for women-owned small businesses, and the female owns 50% and the male owns 50%. They don't qualify for a women-owned small business program.
Oh, it has to be 51% to be majority. Yeah, that makes sense. Okay. We're probably equally gender balance. Thank you. Have a good day.
Thank you for your question and thank you for joining us from Hawaii. Thanks, Terrence. I don't see any more hands. We thank you all for your participation today. We will be sending out a copy of the PowerPoint slides as well as a link to the recording. And those who we had some follow-up here in the Q&A, will be sure to do that. Thank you again for your attendance. We appreciate you. Enjoy the rest of your day.